Hello and welcome to session 31 of my Pillars of Eternity Lorethrough, being recorded on June 22nd, 2023. Last session we went below the sanitarium here. We got access to the back rooms where we saw that the patients weren't being treated very kindly, especially by a man named Caedmon Azo, who we ended up killing because he didn't want us to tell the headmaster here in the statue that he was doing these things, so he attacked us. But before that, we ran into a soul that was powerful enough to be able to basically choose which body it was going to inhabit, and we saw it moving to inhabit different bodies. We also saw the previous bodies that the soul had inhabited, and found that this this soul was trying to basically make the animancers look really bad. Not that they needed any help, but he needed to give it that little extra shove. And it succeeded, I think. So that was the first of 3 different places we have to go that we learned about from the Temple of Whitaker. So now I think it's going to be time to go to the Tower in Heritage Hill.
All right, then.
We've been to the Tower in Heritage Hill before, but... Oh.
Hello!
Dunwoodrow Messenger. Beg your pardon, I have a message for you. You are summoned to Hadra House, where Lady Webb wishes to meet with you as soon as possible. And here I thought the locals were exaggerating about Dunwoodrow, says Kana. Seems like your name's come up in some important meetings. I hope nobody was shouting it at the time. Tell me about Lady Webb. Do you not know who Lady Webb? She's... Well, no one's seen her exactly in a long time, but she's the mistress of Dunwoodrow. Has been for as long as anyone can remember. He pauses, eyeing passerby with suspicion. Quietly, he continues. She's supposed to be old, older than anybody, and she never leaves her room. Some say she's wasted away, and she's just a pile of bones kept animated by dark magics. She's still at it, best anyone can tell, learning things, keeping us safe, pulling the strings behind the throne too, it said. Has a ring of Cypress doing her bidding, telling her everything that goes on. You do wrong in this country before you go asking the gods for forgiveness. Best you ask Lady Webb first. How did you know where to find me? Well, it's Lady Webb. She knows everything. Very well. Let's go do that. But what I was saying before that, we had visited the tower in Heritage Hill before. Older robed man. As you near the apparition, you are overcome suddenly by a powerful anxiety that sits like a stone in your stomach. The feeling is not quite real, the recollection of an emotion rather than the emotion itself. It wrenches your insides, nevertheless. The apparition's brow is tensed, a look of concern plain across its face.
The other missionaries say you have been neglectful of your duties.
So this anxiety seems like it is part of a past life's soul. My mind has been elsewhere.
Oh? And what troubles you?
The pain in your stomach deepens, and you feel for a moment as though you're about to be sick. Your mouth has gone dry. Forgive me, Emissence. I wish to leave the Order, and that's the only thing that we can say here. The man folds his fingers together and presses them to his mouth, thoughtful. So whatever's happening here, this soul is kind of taking over our speech too.
You have been an apt student, and your convictions have inspired those around you. May I ask what has changed to make you feel this way?
So you can at least choose the reason. The people we intended to convert, they committed unspeakable acts, sacrifices, mutilations. The apparition exhales slowly and its lips press together, a sympathetic rapport in its eyes. It places its hand on your shoulder.
These are the ways of the heathen world.
Surely the gods would do better to destroy us all and start anew.
Perhaps they would. It may come to that one day. This is why we must not fail. The heathens are beyond the gods' reach. They do not know better. We are tasked with delivering them to the gods, so that the gods may heal their souls.
Is such a thing possible?
I have seen it with my own eyes. You will see it too, if you choose to remain.
Kind of enticing this person to stay with the Order.
There is no greater calling than the one we have chosen. Neither words, nor wealth, nor battle will end this suffering. Only the gods. Will you give them that chance?
The knot in your stomach seems to loosen all at once, and the anxiety is replaced with something else entirely, something warm and soothing, and it is something you know you can never repay. As the vision fades, you start to become cognizant of the many odd looks aimed in your direction. Your last response echoes in your mind. I will. So they chose not to leave. Whoever that soul was. I don't remember if I was ever actually able to get this out. I kept getting interrupted by things that were happening in the game. First the courier, and then the vision of the older robed man. I did go to the tower at Heritage Hill before, but we were unable to open it. There was nothing we could do there. But while we were in the Temple of Woodica, we learned of a series of things we can do to actually open the door to the tower. Alright, going up to see Lady Webb. The guard says Lady Webb will see you now. Oh, here she is. Nobody's seen her, but here we are seeing her.
I can do that. That's settled.
The notes are scribbled in a cryptic shorthand. Lady Webb, this woman clutches a thick stack of parchment with spindly, wrinkled fingers, their flesh stretched thin to near translucence with extreme age, a gossamer veil over pale blue veins. Ink splotches and candle burns dot and stripe her hands like a quilt patterned after some great indescribable truth. She does not look up from her reading.
So, the messenger conveyed my summons. A miracle that would make the reincarnation of Aothis look like a child's cantrip, surely. It doesn't draw the most inspired minds, messaging. They failed me so many times of late, I nearly sent a cipher after you instead. So this is the Watcher who took over Cad Noir. Oh, don't look so surprised. It isn't an attractive expression. I wouldn't be where I am for long if I let details like that escape me.
Anna leans in towards you. A meager trick, given Cad Noir's fame.
And this fiasco in the sanitarium that you seem to have gotten yourself into the middle of. What in blazes possessed you to stir that nest of trouble?
I'm investigating a strange group.
Strange does not begin to describe them. The practices of the Leaden Key defy all reason.
So she knows about them.
You're not the only one with an interest in their recent activities. I've lost 4 ciphers this year alone trying to get someone inside their ranks. As it is, we only have our suspicions about who is in the group and what they intend. Which I suppose means we have much in common with them. I asked you here because I wanted to know what your interest was in all of this. I thought perhaps we might help each other. Why are you looking for the Leaden Key?
I think I'm going to be upfront. One of their members caused my soul to awaken. I need him to reverse it. I don't want it to be reversed, actually. I ran across a man in one of the ruins. It's important that I find him again. She closes her eyes and the lids flicker. Then her face goes still, and her mouth parts, little more than a sliver, and her hand briefly drops open, spilling some of her parchment on the ground. The page is wafting around her legs like the leaves of a dying tree. Her fleshy eyelids peel back, and her gaze is immediately upon you.
The gods are cruel, I'm afraid. The man you seek is Theos Ix Arcanon, Grand Master of the Leaden Key. One of the most elusive and dangerous men Aora has ever known.
How do you know I seek Theos? So we have a name, Theos Ix Arcanon.
Because you have seen his face, and that makes it a simple matter for me to see it. You even happened to catch him in his ceremonial garb, it seems. It must have been a special occasion.
What can you tell me about Theos?
More than most, though very few would know so much as his name. And there is no way of knowing how much of what I've read is true. The Leaden Key dates back more than 2,000 years. If rumors are to be believed, Theos was the one who created it. What scraps of evidence exist suggest that he has died many times, only to be reborn each time exactly the same man, awakened during adolescence with all the knowledge and experience of all his lifetimes. The plots he orchestrates sometimes take hundreds of years to bear fruit. Needless to say, this is not the natural order of things. But he is said to be one of Woodica's favored, and that old bat was never one to let rules get in the way of favoritism.
She just called Woodica an old bat. So yeah, as we probably could have guessed, this soul of Theos Ix Arcanon has been the exact same soul for countless years, awakening in adolescence, and he still has all his knowledge and everything. So he is basically, for all intents and purposes, immortal. I'm sure we could kill him, but even then, what would happen to his soul? So he's basically, while his body dies, his soul has lived on in an awakened manner that seems like it might be unique, completely unique.
That may also explain another supposed gift of his. His body is no boundary to his soul, and he is known to take possession of others, if their souls are weak enough. Often it is for elaborate deceptions, but sometimes he simply forces them to kill themselves. He is not known for his generous supply of pity.
So we saw one of these elaborate deceptions of his when he was taking over the flesh constructs and some of the patients in the sanitarium to wart, I guess, Azo's ambitions. And we also see why he was taking these people, because the souls had to be weak. So if they were patients in the sanitarium, that meant that there was something within their soul that was causing some issues with them. So it had to be those people.
He is also not one to show himself in any but their most critical matters. If he has directly involved himself in whatever the group plots now, it may be your only chance to find him. And once you do find him, if you can find him, I would not hold my hopes too high if I were you. He is a driven, single-minded man. He will not have the slightest concern for your problems.
In other words, if we do find him, it's not like he's going to help us out with our awakening and being a watcher. How do you know so much about Theos?
The same way I come by all my knowledge. Exhaustive research, spying, bribery, perhaps some less savory measures. Whatever the knowledge demands, I pay in full. There is nothing of greater value. Unfortunately, with Theos, there is also nothing more scarce. He has covered his tracks far too well. His manipulations of the course of history are lost to time now, though I believe they were many.
His manipulations of the course of history are lost to time now. In other words, this soul has had a hand in who knows how many things throughout the history of Aora. But he did such a good job at it that it's impossible to actually find his meddling, basically. And because he is a favored of Woodica, it probably stands to reason then that Woodica has been trying to shape history through Theos. What else is there to know about the Leaden Key?
Precious little, I'm afraid. You may know much of it already. No one member knows the identity of more than a handful of other members. They are kept in the dark of missions they are not involved in, or sometimes of those they are involved in. They exist to hide secrets they themselves don't know, if you can imagine how gullible someone must be for that to appeal.
In other words, often members of the Leaden Key don't really even know what they are about, which is why it must be so difficult for someone like Lady Webb to figure it out, because if they don't even know what they're doing, then how can she read their minds and figure out what they're doing?
Despite that, they are very good at what they do, owing much to their founder, who will take matters into his own hands when necessary. And he does not fail.
So what do you want from me?
Keep me informed. The Leaden Key has been busy lately, and that is distressing news. I can only guess as to what they intend. You seem to have a knack for turning the stones they've crawled beneath. Keep turning them. Dunreed Row will not stop you.
In other words, they're not going to stop us from investigating the Leaden Key, but they've also been trying to figure out what they're about for a long time. So when we do find something out, Lady Webb wants us to tell her about it. Even though it seems like she doesn't really need us to tell her about it. She can just figure it out herself.
Whatever it is they're up to, figuring it out will be of great use to both of us. In your case, it will surely point you to Theos. In return, I will share our knowledge with you as we learn it, and provide you with what assistance I can.
Very well.
If you find your trail has run cold, come to me with whatever you have. There is much I may be able to do for you.
There's something I can tell you about the Leaden Key's operations.
Well, let's hear it.
I found Theos in Brackenberry Sanitarium impersonating a patient. He was trying to damage the public's opinion of animancy.
Forgive me, it is unlike Theos to leave witnesses. He must be furious.
Yeah, and he did try to kill us afterwards, just didn't take.
He did not aid you as you'd hoped, I take it? Well, take heart. With any luck, when he has finished his business, he will surely come and find you again, if only to kill you while you sleep. This news of yours makes sense, of course. To dabble in animancy is to puzzle over the secrets of the gods. This would not be the Leaden Key's first action against it. But if this is connected to their other activities, we may be in for something on a much larger scale. If we can learn more about their goals and methods, perhaps we can get the palace behind us. With Avar's support, we may be able to put a stop to this.
Which will help us stop the Leaden Key if we need to. So apparently the Leaden Key has had a problem with animancy for a while. Let's see, can I ask other questions? I guess we can ask some questions about Lady Webb. Although, man, her voice actress is really slow with the delivery. Tell me more about Dunreed Row.
All the things there are to know in this world, and you ask me about work. Deerwood is a rebel country. Conflict is in its blood. If you think a few guards posted in our cities keep chaos at bay, you are very new to town indeed. We are Deerwood's cipher investigators, of course. But what we really are is its last barrier against anarchy. People are more at ease when they believe they are watched over by someone more enlightened than they are. It pacifies them. So that is the image we foster. And we do try to be enlightened for their sake. The knowledge we gather here is Deerwood's standing army in many ways. We learn what's vital and we act on it while Deerwood sleeps, blissfully unaware of the terrifying truths all around them. I wish I could tell people the things I know sometimes, but the truth is I don't think many of them could bear it.
So the leader way of just constantly keeping things hidden from your underlings, thinking it's for their own good. How did you come to be here?
Me? I started this place, in a different time, under a different Duke. I impressed the Duke with my research and my work ethic, and he became possessed of the notion that I would be ideal to lead a secret network of gifted investigators. I don't know how such an idea got into his head.
Lady Webb has supposedly been around for a very long time. I wonder how long she and Theos have kind of been enemies. Is Theos aware of her? Has she just been trying to find him, but he is just completely unaware of her? I don't know. That's kind of an interesting question there. How old are you? Not a very good question to ask there, Bearter, but I am curious. She gives a half-hearted gasp and covers her mouth with her crumpled fingers. You wicked man. Where are your manners? Were you raised without a shred of decency?
I lost count ages ago. Such a strange thing to celebrate, getting closer to death. Oh, I've had my share of work done to prolong my existence, if that's what you're wondering. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not done here. There are things I still wish to learn. And I'll be the effigy if I let Bereth carry me off before I'm through. There was a time when I considered enlisting the theorems of Pondgrum to extend my life indefinitely. I found the thought of devouring my political enemies to sustain my own life greatly appealing. I must have gone soft with age.
So we are looking for these theorems of Pengram for one of the animancers. And it seems like there are secrets in there for using other lives to sustain your own. So that's not a great thing. Are you psychic?
If you are hoping I can look at your hand and tell you whom you should marry, you can just wipe that notion from your mind. I do not know what will happen tomorrow. That is what I pay spies for. Being a cipher is not unlike being a watcher. You notice more about what is already there. Many can hold an object and know where it's been, or peer into the thoughts of people around them. They can also sometimes affect those thoughts, but that would be unethical, of course. A tiny, talented few pick up so much about the world around them, they can get images of things to come, but these are fleeting and unreliable.
Wonder what she would think about our cipher abilities. You said you don't know what will happen tomorrow.
Who said I was talented? I don't. Least not that I can trust. And with me, it's only ever about one thing anyway.
What's that?
A quiet day at home.
Is there a Lord, Webb? I wonder if she's gonna think we're hating on her.
There was.
What happened to him?
He believed in dying with dignity. He was old-fashioned that way, my husband. We saw the world very differently, he and I. But he was good to me while he lasted.
So we have a woman here who is so old that even she doesn't know how old she is. So unlike Theos, whose body dies and the soul inhabits another body through the wheel, it's just a very powerful soul that awakens early and can basically take over and remember everything from past lives. Lady Webb here has actually been alive in this body for who knows how long. Which is why she knows about Theos probably. She's probably had some run-ins with him before, but I still wonder, like, is Theos aware of her as she is of him? Let's talk about something else. I don't have any other questions. Farewell.
Try your best not to die out there.
Thank you. Okay. Let's head now to Heritage Hill. Do I need a rest? I don't. Let's just check out the stronghold real quick. Building trails construction. Nairi, oh, that's right. I don't know what this escort does, but since he's being escorted, it doesn't give me the debuffs that my stronghold had in security and prestige. Okay, so my throat is very scratchy right now, so I'm going to stop this recording because I just feel like I'm always coughing and sniffling and stuff like that, and I'm going to pick up from later. So I don't know if I do keep this part in. Just know that what happens after this, while it will be a part of the same session, the same video, it will not actually be the same time that I'm sitting down. It may just be a few hours, it may be tomorrow, but yeah, it won't be the same time. Okay, I'm back. I dusted around here. It's been a while since I've done that. I'm kind of hoping that was why I was, like, I just had like a scratchy throat and everything. So hopefully this session goes a little bit better than the last one. But we are continuing session 31 here. And we are headed to Heritage Hill to go into the tower that we could not reach before. Enter the tower at Heritage Hill. The massive stone door of the tower is sealed, and there doesn't appear to be any way of opening it. Speak the words you learned from the Leaden Key Acolyte. You hear rumbles and clanks from hidden tumblers as the door unlocks. Okay, let's see if we are ready to be
Margaret's
here.
fire casts light in dark places.
Ghouls and Darghouls. The skeletal wizard.
All right, then. Keeping an eye out.
Okay, crumpled page from Aldhelm's journal and Trindig's letter. Day 7, a week of study, and we're still none the wiser about this device. Trindig remains optimistic. I don't know what I'd do without his spirit. So it seems like there are people in here that were trying to get the device working in this tower, and not having much luck with that. Trindig's letter. Dearest Mother and Father, you'll be pleased to hear that I've learned much already since coming to the city. There are many incredible ruins nearby, and Master Greg has allowed me to accompany him on a number of expeditions. I am writing to you from inside an ancient Ingwithan tower. There's an entire district built up around it, but the locals have mostly left the tower untouched. They have let us set up temporary living quarters here, so our work can continue uninterrupted. It is an unsettling place at times, but Master Greg has been a constant comfort, and he is quick to remind me that the things we learn from this tower may one day help us find a cure for Weidman's legacy. I'd better get some rest now. Mr. Greg likes to get an early start to the day. All my love, Trindig. So we have 3 people so far here. We have Trindig, we have Master Greg, and we have Aldhelm. The mattress is lumpy and smells of old straw, but whoever slept here last made it neatly. Essence shimmers and pulsates within this strange device. So if we take a look at this thing here, there's essence, and I think by essence they mean soul essence. We also have a bunch of like what's the word for this? Like flasks and stuff on. It looks like they're kind of potions or some kind of chemicals that are within the flasks here. So it looks like what they were trying to do is to get this device started. Skeletons. Oh my god. So quickly.
You're not getting through me.
Patting the scratchy old coverlet thickens the air with dust. No one has used this bed in weeks. It's weeks, but weeks is not that long. So even though it's been a while, even though whoever was staying here has stopped sleeping in this bed, it hasn't been that long that they've been here, that it's been since they've been doing that. So this is not some like centuries old decrepit thing or anything.
Something over there.
Oops, I forgot to pick up Alof after he died. Okay, so we have a potion of iron skin. A potion of power. We have Saint Widewind Farmer Become God, which we have read, and we have another page from Althelm's journal. Day 2. We've completed our measurements of the machine. Thanks to Trindig's youthful agility, further examination is required to discover its intended use.
Keeping an eye out.
Okay, that's it for this floor. Alof is moving slowly because he went down and he has a wounded knee, a wrenched knee. Revenant over there. Dargul. Dunreed Row. I think I've read this one. Okay, yes we have.
What do you suppose that bally thing is?
You're not getting through me.
Leave it to me!
You're not getting...
I'm gonna find out what Islemir said. Didn't record it, whatever it was. Okay.
I'll take a look.
The scroll contains pen and ink diagram of the odd device running through the tower. Despite copious measurements and carefully drawn detail, it gives no indication of the machine's purpose. So, as we found out in the notes, they don't really even know what it was intended to do. They were just trying to get it up and running, which always seems like a great idea. The Works of the Anguithans, a comprehensive guide. Wish we could read that book. Psalm Twotica, we've read that. Fireball scroll and another page from Althelm's journal, day 11. Finally got out of the tower to clear our heads. Beast, take the patrons. We'll finish the study on our own terms, our own time. Just as I said as much to Trindig. The sky came to life with stray lightning. I said it's a good omen, but the poor lad spooked. Only cure for that is a good night's sleep. So it seemed like things were going ominously wrong, surprisingly. Surprisingly is scare quotes there. Sarcastic quotes anyway.
You're not...
Pulsing, pounding energy in the machine feels even stronger up here. So this machine goes up through the tower. Another page of Althelm's journal. Day 10. Patrons grow impatient with the lack of quantifiable results. They should drag themselves out of their mansions and spend a few nights here if they think it's so easy. So they're being paid to examine this tower and to try and get the machine started. A sigil of the arcane. Arcane dampener. Oh, a letter from Akantha. Okay, I'm just going to pick this up. I don't know what an arcane dampener is. And it's of, so maybe I'll give this one to Aloth. Althelm, I did indeed receive your recent summons, as well as the two that came before it. I'd been waiting for you to present yourself on my doorstep so that I could give you my answer in person, a firm and unwavering no. I won't help you. In fact, I relish the idea of you and your team's glorified engineers sitting in that tower sweating over the runes I've studied for years. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than knowing that my research, which you've long disparaged, is the missing piece in your mundane little puzzle. As you well know, it's knowledge I've always valued. I'm just around the corner. I encourage you to find me should you wish to rehash this conversation in person. Yours truly, Akantha. Akantha was the vampire that we ran into that we couldn't damage at all, that just kind of was like, I hope you got that out of your system when we attacked her. So I wonder if she has a larger significance to this place. Well, she does have a larger significance to this place. Have to find out what that is exactly. Here we are at the top of the tower. There's Aldhelm.
Let's try this configuration. Still nothing. Confounded device.
Did it just... I found an ancient machine at the top of the tower, and just as the acolyte showed me, there's someone else up here. He may be able to tell me more about what happened here, and we've been reading his notes, so let's see what he says. A man hunches over the strange mechanism, his spine a sharp ridge rising from the arched back. He's barely clothed in filthy rags, and the patches of skin you see are mottled green. A spoiled stench emanates from him. He's so intent on his work that he doesn't notice you until your shadow falls over him. So it seems like his body is decayed. When he turns and sees you, he snarls and scuttles behind the outer pedestal. Only his bare teeth seem to have escaped decay. His eyes are yellowed and bloodshot, but they flicker with intelligence. He averts his gaze and holds a hand in front of his face.
Shouldn't be here. What do you want?
Who and what are you?
15 years at Brackenbury. 7 tours to the ruins beyond Solace Vale. I'm an animancer. Still an animancer.
His gaze lights on the Audra post with sudden recognition. He starts to turn back to the copper dials. So I don't know if he's saying I'm an animancer, like doubling down, saying like, yeah, I might be dead now, but I'm still an animancer. Or is he reminding himself that he's an animancer? Tell me what happened here.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
He smashes a fist into the Audra pillar. His hand makes a crunching noise, but doesn't bleed.
Forgive me. Forgive me. Research. We came to do research. on the tower. Some commission from gods. It hardly matters now.
Alos's lips twist in disgust. If I had a proper copper skate for every fool animancer whose thirst for knowledge led to disaster, well, I never would have ended up in Gilded Vale, that's for sure. Keep talking, Aldhelm.
Something happened on our 11th night. Lights in the sky and a static charge in the air. But we were so careful. We were staying in the chambers below. Trindig, my assistant, said he saw a robed figure lurking around the tower. Wore a mask. Carried knives at his sides. A trick of shadows, I told him. The next morning, we felt strange. Like we hadn't eaten in weeks. So dazed that we didn't at first notice the blood around our beds. The strange wounds that had appeared overnight.
It seems like assassins came in here and killed Aldhelm and his assistant Trindig, but they obviously raised an undeath. And I'm going to guess with these robes and stuff like that, it seems like they were let in key.
And the machine, this cursed spire, dormant for 2,000 years, lifeless through hundreds of our experiments, and we wake that morning to find it spinning on its own. On its own! How can we stop what we couldn't start?
So did the leaden key start it? Kana says, as exciting as the prospect of a living machine may be, I suspect that given mention of a machine and a masked figure both, there is another explanation.
Years I've been doing this. Years. I know how these things work, but I don't know how this happened. Nowhere to go. That's the problem. Their souls are trapped here like flies in a jar, clinging to rotting meat.
Slow down. What does the machine have to do with souls?
No time to slow down. But I can explain. Hold a magnet over iron splinters and they stick, yes? Rub your hand over weir wool and the hair of your head will follow it. So it is with this machine.
He looks at you and runs his tongue along the edges of his fine, strong teeth. He quickly looks away.
It has the power to manipulate souls, but why? For what? And how many others lie buried in the ruins of Erglonfoth? No. Focus on this one. It's imprisoned our souls in our bodies. Cut the root between essence and flesh. Left a dwindling soul stuck in a shriveling husk.
Okay. So first of all, he seems to be worried that there are other machines like this in some of the Glenfathan or Ingwithan ruins. And he says this machine has imprisoned our souls in our bodies. In other words, it seems... Okay, so yeah, that means that the body is decaying and dead, but the soul is trapped there. Is that what the undead are in this world? I know I read them before, but I'm kind of drawing a blank here. I'll have to look that up when we're done with this. There was a stranger in the tower the night this happened?
I didn't see him. My assistant, he saw him. We laughed. Said he was spooked by the cemetery. Perhaps it was already too late. I don't know what he did. But by morning the machine was on and we were slain. People were already on the streets, complaining of neighbors and family members acting strangely.
So whatever happened in Heritage Hill, this machine is the cause of it. You're not like the ghouls in the street.
Not yet. But I will be. My body is dead. My soul, imprisoned in this corpse, only makes it seem otherwise. And as the body decays, so does the mind. Until nothing is left but the hunger. The only way to stall the process is through a regular infusion of essence. Living flesh is the only ready supply.
The only way to forestall the process is through regular infusion of essence. Living flesh is the only ready supply. In other words, this is why the undead eat people, eat living people.
I'm not proud of any of it. Hunting men and women in the early days of the affliction. Picking off soldiers that came to investigate. But I'd do it again. I'll do it as long as I must to end this disaster.
In other words, he's willing to kill in order to try and figure out how to turn this machine off. He spent a long time trying to turn it on, and now that it's on, first of all, he didn't have anything to do with it turning on, but now that it is on, he wants it off.
You could help. Help me end this. Help me find sustenance.
Does he want us to hunt people for him? What happened to the rest of your team?
By the time I realized what had happened, the district had already been sealed. So we fed when we needed, and locked ourselves in the tower to work. And then there came a time when the hunger struck, and there was hardly anyone left.
In other words, when there was hardly anyone left now. So basically, they killed the entire district of people to stay alive, and now there's no one left, so he's just kind of on a slow decay towards, I think, after Ghoul is Revenant and finally Skeleton. How can I help?
Not your help I need. It's Harridan, shrew. Squanders her research on frivolities, then refuses to make herself useful. Runes. The runes are the last part of the puzzle. Acantha knows them. She gives them to you, and you can turn the machine off. Release our souls.
Wait, runes? Says Kana. The Anguithan runes? She can read them. He speaks of this feat so blandly. Let's talk instead of this Harridan, Bjarter. I'd pick her thoughts at time. I'd pick her thoughts at time? I don't know what that means. Aldhelm says she wasn't here the night the machine came on, staying with her patron somewhere near. Too good to be burdened with our ignorant company. We have already met Acantha. I'll get the words from Acantha.
Yes. Acantha. She was here. In the district. Probably here still. Always prepared. Clever lady, that one. And perhaps you bring me something. Something to keep me sharp. Then I show you a secret about the machine. Something to make you strong.
Again, it sounds like he wants us to bring him a body. I don't really want to do that. There's a saying in Rawatai about feeding sharks. Don't do this, Bjarter. If nothing else, you're liable to lose a hand. Okay, so we gotta go talk to Acantha. Let's explore up here first. Standing near the device feels like being blown away by a storm gale. The stone steps hum with energy. A jagged Adra pillar rises in front of you, encased in stonework and run through with copper veins. Unintelligible runes cover the panel. Inspect the machine. A sunburst of copper filaments surrounds a dial that looks to be about twice the size of a hen's egg. The filaments cross and diverge, ending in a bead-tipped nodes. Each wire has a point of origin somewhere along the edge of the dial. Runes are inscribed around the dial. I'm not going to turn the dial. Who knows what's going to happen there? It seems like doing things that you don't know is how this district got to the way it was in the first place. Oh, nice. And then proceed to the bottom. Okay. I think this is Acantha's house. Yep. before I go in here, let's see if I can find a kind of general explanation of vessels. Let's look at ghouls. Because that's what we called him up there. Take a look in the guide. Maybe we can find something there. Oh, there is something about vessels in general. Yes, so ghouls, the undead, they are generally considered vessels. So let's read what the guidebook has to say about vessels. When it comes to states of non-living, it is important to distinguish between types. A construct is a framework of, often artificial, humanoid parts housing an operational soul. So that would be like the Forge Knights and the Animats. The souls in question can be fully conscious or merely reflexive, but they share a common goal: to willingly take on a specified form and carry out an objective, for example, the protection of a tomb. Employing constructs is a time-honored, if morbid, tradition. Necromancy is the ancient ixometal process used to bind a soul to its body. So this is, necromancy is magic here. So it binds a soul to the body, and it seems kind of like that's what's happening here. What's his name? Aldhelm up on top of the tower said that his soul was trapped in his body. So even though his body was dead, the soul was still there animating it. Although history has shown this process is typically done to an unwilling subject, it has been bestowed on the willing, or even self-imposed, more often than one might think. The souls of the undead are not bound to anything as elegant or resourceful as a construct. Their bodies rely on living tissue and soul energy to maintain their grim existence. Depending on their state of preservation, the undead exhibit characteristics that will change over the span of their degenerating life cycle. A living body naturally contains the entirety of a soul. As long as the body is functioning, the entire soul tends to gravitate to this body. However, a soul trapped within an imperfect vessel, such as a dead or dying one, tends to weaken over time. This weakening accelerates the decay of the body quite rapidly. An undead creature can avoid most of this decay by fortifying its dwindling soul. An undead creature can avoid most of this decay by... Oh, so this is what he's talking about. That's why he needs to eat living people. The simplest way to do this is to ingest material rich with soul energy. The flesh and blood of the living tend to be the most readily available, but other materials such as Adra are possible substitutes. Other means of magically fortifying one's soul are feasible through the use of animancy. This typically involves magically siphoning portions or the entirety of the soul from another living being. It is important to note that while decay can be delayed, it can never be reversed. Once the undead creature has fortified its soul, it must nourish its body. Although the body is not naturally alive, it requires basic sustenance to avoid additional decay. Consuming the flesh and blood of living creatures while the creatures yet live tends to solve both survival dilemmas undead creatures face. So they are both physically hungry and I don't know how to call, like, their soul is hungry as well. It needs to devour soul energy. So eating living creatures solves the physical hunger and it solves the soul hunger as well. And it says this is necromancy, which is an ixometal process. As I said when we were examining the map, the ixometal plains are to the northeast of that map, and it's said that they are just kind of farmers. But here it says necromancy is an ancient ixometal process used to bind the soul to its body. It almost seems like that's what's happening here. So it's kind of like a combination of both animancy and necromancy. So necromancy is being used to bind the soul to the body, which is creating these undead, and animancy is being used to feed them with the soul energy. However, even when they get fed with soul energy, they still have to get fed with actual, like, nourishment, like physical nourishment. And what happened at the top of the tower here, these people turned into ghouls, and they have just kind of been feeding on the people of Heritage Hill, the soldiers that come in there, and until there's nothing left, which means that they are going to quickly, or at least eventually, become skeletons. They are just going to eventually decay because, as it said, the decaying process can be put off, but it can never be reversed. So once you are undead, it is inevitable that you will go through all the stages from vampire to Darghoul to Ghoul to Revenant to Skeleton. It's inevitable that that will happen to you, but you do have a say over how much time that takes. Very interesting stuff here. And I think that is going to actually take us to the end of this session. So we explored to the top of the tower here. Let me see if we can get a better look at this tower in the map. Yeah, we can kind of see it off to the side right here. And when we were on top, I meant to point this out. We could actually see Defiance Bay below, so I'll have to point that out next time we go up there. But yeah, and we are on our way to talk to Akantha, who supposedly is able to read the runes on the Audra Pillar at the top of the tower, which can help us stop it and stop taking soul energy basically from the people that are living here in Heritage Hill. Figure out exactly what's going on here. So yeah, that's what we will be doing next session. We will talk with Akantha. Hopefully figure out what's going on with this machine and stop it doing what it's doing. I'm just noticing here, very interestingly, that there are these like purple wisps that are floating through the air. I don't know if you're going to be able to see them in the video or not, but I wonder if that's like supposed to be like little faint pieces of soul energy that are kind of floating around this tower here. So yeah, join me next session when we talk to Akantha and figure out about the Ingwithan runes on the Audra Pillar at the top of the tower. And thank you so much for joining me this time as well for session 31. Let me know of any questions you have, and we will hopefully see you again in session 32. Thanks everybody, and goodbye.